We have Bob and Angie. Yeah.
Good morning.
Hi. Yeah, how are you,
Angie's
Angie?
on and Bob's on.
Yep, hanging in there.
Get Bob checked
Nice.
in. All right. Check their persistent list.
It's just to the right down the hall, a couple doors. I don't know. Did you find the line item that we were talking about yesterday?
Yeah. So we're gonna have to have Jay say who's there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not getting a participant list for some reason.
Yeah, no,
have
that's
one.
You have one? Oh,
Yeah,
there.
so
Okay, I just
Joe,
didn't click it right. All right,
Robert's
there we go. Angie,
iPhone,
Bob.
Dave, and me.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, there it is. I didn't understand why it didn't come up.
but you can see that on this new place, that's kind of the view, is it's quite a ways away.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
With the other place that they had, it was a little bit easier to see people, but I can see Lou there.
Okay, thank you. Let me write him down.
That looks like Joe right there.
Yeah, of course, Joe and Jay, and I've heard Mary Beth, and I've heard Kim, and I've heard
Right.
Ann. Ann's there today.
Right, and I think you can pin, if you pin the video on that one, oops, then it makes it bigger and it allows you to zoom in a little bit more, because I see
Oh.
Bob.
Okay.
Already volunteered.
Okay.
You see what you see how I did that, Joanne? Yeah. I can't tell if that's Marty or Kim. It could be Kim.
Well, Kim, I know, I hear her voice. I don't know whether
Okay.
Marty.
No, looks like there's only like 5 or 6 people there.
Okay,
36 or 37.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that looks like Ann.
Yeah, Ann walking in. Okay, I've heard her voice.
Yeah, and that looks like Herb with the light blue, shirt. Right, you know, oh, and maybe that's Rusty.
Yeah, I heard Rusty's name, or you heard his voice.
They're all online.
They're all online.
What do you mean?
Oh, we can't see them?
They're in the top of the screen, the left.
Oh, I just got my glasses.
But the list is all you can see. I mean, a couple people are up there. They can't see you there.
They can't see me.
No.
Oh, we can't.
It's on this camera.
Okay, all right.
I want 2 of the peach bourbon.
I feel the same way.
What?
So they switched the.
20 years ago.
Before they get packed up, I want to set them aside.
Looks like Bob's in his car. He's driving.
We have a smaller turnout today, so come in.
Yeah, I think he replied, but he doesn't know he's on mute. Or maybe he does know he's on mute.
Maybe he does. Maybe it's best that he's on mute.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, don't wreck.
Beautiful.
Can you hear us on Zoom?
Hi.
Yes,
hello.
we can.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Good. Make sure the microphone is on. Oh, it is. I think they were talking to someone else in the meeting. So. Awesome. Well, we'll get started. And now we're on Zoom mode and not.
That's the wrong date.
Yeah, I didn't fix it because no one ever looks at it. All right, we're being recorded, so that's canonized now to the future. Quick agenda for today. We'll go through our verbal bell ringing, our normal introduction stuff. We've got a bunch of announcements today, and then a program. So stand up and Brother, would you start us in the pledge?
Oh, not you, Bob.
I'm stopped.
You're stopped.
The United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one
Nation,
indivisible.
indivisible.
Thank you. If you remain standing, we'll do the 4-way test. The things of truth.
It's a bear dog concern.
Will be beneficial for all. And
Will it be fun?
be seated. Just no preamble today. And Irv, if you come on up, we've got your Rotary Minute going. You can do it from back there. Also,
Can I do it
camera.
back here?
Absolutely.
Is that how you
Do you want to do that?
No.
For me, Rotary means generosity, trust, cooperation, and friendship,
Oh.
as demonstrated during a successful project for the benefit of wonderful children and spiritual people at a small community high in the Columbian Mountains. Generosity, every club in District 5450 that we asked to contribute money, gave money. And the district gave money, and then of course TRF, the Rotary Foundation, matched what was given before. So our small contribution got doubled and then quadrupled. Trust, doing a project in a foreign country with people you have never met offers numerous opportunities for fraud, waste, and abuse. Any such worries, however, were quickly put to rest, as the club president was the local district attorney, and the project's monitor was the CPA. We had wonderful cooperation from the Rotary Club in Santa Marta, Columbia. The project leader hiked with us 13 miles, rode burros with us, shared a little coca with us. All up and down 13 dusty miles on the way to Sober. He returned several times afterwards to check on the project. Maybe he had a girlfriend. Success. Successful project. Schools partially destroyed by the bad guys were rebuilt, and the number of children now being educated in the community has increased by a factor of about 20. The average standard of living for a family in Socorro has increased by a similar factor. We have an opportunity to contribute more to the community by buying and selling Socorro coffee that is available online. I suggest you participate in a project this Christmas of selling coffee from Socorro. It's like very beneficial for people in the community. With that, that's the first. All good.
I sold coffee many years ago.
Yeah.
And it was very successful because it was good and with the loss of the citrus over Christmas, I think that that's a great idea.
Okay, I will take.
Beans
it
or
upon
brown?
myself. I don't know if we get coffee shipped up here in a timely fashion. Yes.
Whole
Shipping is a no.
brown.
We'll ship green and then have it roasted here locally.
Okay.
So I usually use the blind guy.
Right.
But I lost him. I don't know where he's. I
Blind
gotta
guy?
go find him
He's
again.
on Front Pearl. We have
Yeah,
That's a
the
great guy.
store's on Pearl, but his roastery used to be in Lafayette. But that big church bought that strip mall and kicked him out. So I don't know where he is.
Paulette said she, yeah.
It's blind
I
guy.
don't know, Kiwanis used to do that, the thing you were talking about with the food. You go to different places, but he was one of the people who participated.
Paulette says that she knows him and that she told us at the peach sale that she could connect us with him. if we needed to. That's what she said.
There's another option, and the coffee we sold last time is now available from a roastery, Eagle Road. It's called Dragonfly. You actually can buy it at Whole Foods.
Dragonfly used to be in Lafayette. I used to go there. That was a coffee shop on South Boulder Road.
Well,
Small world.
now.
We should do it.
All right. Then we can talk coffee all day, it sounds like. All right, well, Herb, if you want to put something together to pitch to the fundraising, which Dutch Kroger technically oversees the fundraising committee, which is the same as the grants committee. So, yeah, I know that she's heard from you about it when we were talking at the peach sale, but yeah, I'm sure that she could push that through if you want to spearhead it.
Sure.
No, I think the coffee was, I remember it. I'm an old lady, so I forget everything, but I remember the coffee being very successful, and then we did peacocks the next year. And that was successful because they're portable. It's hard to mail a box of citrus, but you can mail
That's right.
a got shelf life coffee or peacocks.
And we know that place in San Francisco over that trail.
Yeah.
You can actually order it in bags now from the community, but I'm not sure that all comes from Silver.
I think keeping the relationship with Silver Lake, because we were so that's involved with them for so many years, is really something that our club should continue to do. Because it was a great relationship. And I still remember the meeting with Kristen where she said, well, I'm thinking about, I've got this community of Columbia, and then she joined us and she was very successful.
They don't need water filters.
There's plenty of water, because they're on the side of a mountain, and they're in the intertropical convergence zone, so it rains every afternoon, which meant we had to get up at about 3 o'clock in the morning to start our 13-mile trek. So we could get off the hillside before it started. So
Have you ever Kristen been back to Silver Lake?
we have not.
She now has a baby. So.
Oh, she did?
Okay.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, she has a baby in September.
Kristen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't even know she was married.
Yes.
Oh.
Is that a requirement?
I made an assumption.
She is
Yeah, she
married.
lives in Denver.
All right.
Because she had to change her dress and changing her dress.
You know who else is around here?
Hey,
Lauren.
we're gonna move through the meeting real quick. We're gonna have happy hour afterward. We go on, meet for coffee and then talk more. All right, just wanna make sure we get through our agenda today, get to our program, so. Thank you so much, Herb, that was really helpful. And Terry, if you could tap back on the presentation instead of Zoom, that would be super helpful, the computer.
I do.
Terry,
Oh,
thank you.
did I?
You tapped off of the presentation.
I did.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. So today we don't have guests except for our program, so we'll get to that in a minute. Do we have any guests online, Terry?
Guests.
Guests.
I'm assuming Robert is Bob Conley.
Not touching.
Yep. Yep. We got a black screen by the
Cheers.
here, Terry.
I've got Joe and Dave and Bob and Angie.
Awesome. Well, sounds like no guest introductions today, but lots of people online.
Oh,
You
wow.
able to tap the
Where is
presentation
everybody?
again? Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was chatting with Joe.
Well, for club updates, first off, with Joe, we've got the community service updates here. Isabel Road cleanup is on the 25th in the morning. I put a bunch of the information here. This is also current. This is from the email you sent me not terribly long ago. 8 a.m. meetup, corner of Isabel and 95th. And there'll be coffee, donuts, and safety briefing. I did want to point out, if you have safety vests from Peach Sales, please bring them to the next meeting. That way we'll be able to make sure that Joe has all of those safety vests, and any additional vests is great, but those vests have our Rotary logo on them, so it'd be really helpful. Additionally, I wanted to point out the Habitat for Humanity event, and a few of you were there, so I don't know if anyone wanted to give a 30-second report out on that.
Yeah, well, it was awesome. Terry was there and Kim, they both did caulking and site cleanup. Lou worked with Dennis, a different volunteer, doing boxing of plumbing pipes and stuff inside, some carpentry skills. And Ellen Miller and I worked on fitting some soffit and cutting trim. Sweet project. It was hot. It was hot. It was a hot Friday, but it's a project over on Palo Parkway. And there was some discussion about their 19 units that they're building on 22nd and Violet. And there is a great opportunity for Rotary to get involved more so on from the ground up on some of these units.
That's the foundation work
From everybody.
This was a triplex.
Awesome.
This was a sweet unit.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So we tried to get Rotaract to be involved, but it was too last minute. But they're very interested in doing something with Habitat.
Okay, well, so and the bottom line from Pam on that is that everybody needs to register through Habitat for Humanity to get a login. And then once you logged in with them and you've signed a waiver, then it's simple to go to their calendar and pick whatever day is gonna work in your calendar and show up as a volunteer.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at too, Ann, is wanting to make sure that we participate at the same time. So if we are gonna help with additional units, that's a great opportunity because they're interested to coordinate with
I'll
us.
let them know.
Yeah,
Big
So ask
well,
Pam.
and no training required, you should wear work boots, show up and bring your work gloves. But they provide you with the hard hat, they provide you with simple skill training. Lou's still got all his fingers, he ran a chop saw for quite a while.
Coincidentally, he's not missing a toe, but that's. That was a table saw. All right, well, thank you so much, Joe. I'm glad the event was a success. I'm sure we got a couple photos and
They're online.
wonderful.
I didn't take it.
Great, thank you.
I got your butt, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, let's move
My
on.
best side.
Real quick for this month, club assembly is on the 22nd. And then 5th Wednesday, that's right. We have a real meeting with the speaker on the 29th as well. But we do have a real meeting on the 5th Wednesday this month. Bill found a speaker that looked really great. So that was the current scheduling time frame for that. But we're talking about a Frank Chop House social event. And Lou, I don't know if you want to pitch real quick, any ideas there?
Well, I need to get a RSVP on that, so I don't know how much food to order. We from 5 to 7, we'll be outside, subject to the weather. He has a room inside if needed. And they're really excited about having us there. I told them around 20 to 25 people.
Where is Frank's Chop House?
Frank's Chop is on Walnut, right across from the old Met.
It's expensive.
What, it's just the Walnut Chop House, I mean, it's
Yeah.
Walnut Brewery, I don't know who
So-
Frank is, that's all.
Well, Frank bought it, but they do have a pretty good happy hour offering.
Yeah.
Cheap beer.
So I think that the idea is because of the way that club meeting structure is, we would pay for some like light hors d'oeuvre setup. If you want to get a meal, great. If you want to get a drink, great. But it's just a socialization on the
New
patio.
York Porter,
Yeah, you can do a full,
quarter steak.
yeah, 64 ounce, I think,
Bring
yeah.
your checkbook.
Yeah. And
What
chocolate.
time?
Sorry, we're doing.
What time?
Meetings also in the morning? I mean,
We do have a meeting that
in the
morning.
morning and then this is.
This would be a separate social event at the end of the evening.
Oh,
Can't
So-
drink all day.
Same
Don't start
time.
it.
Same day, I know, it's 2 Rotary events in one day. It's crazy.
the question?
5 to 7.
Okay,
5 to
7.
7.
Can't drink all day and
Yeah.
it's started.
Yeah, I don't drink either, so I'm sure they have coffee.
And fruit juice for you.
Oh my goodness. All right, we're moving forward, but anyhow, this was an idea, so it was proposed by Lou. He was talking to Frank himself, and so we'll just wanted to throw that by people to see. It's kind of a low obligation sort of thing for us, but I thought it sounded, since we've been going for nonstop in our club, and I feel like we haven't had a social opportunity, it sounds like something that people might be interested in. So
But I do need RSVP.
Yeah.
Put that on the slide.
we'll send an email out for that by the end of this week. Yeah. All right. So district information. One thing that Ann brought up, just a reminder about CU Rotaract, but they meet Wednesdays, every other Wednesday, at 6 to 7 p.m. And that's on the CU campus. And today is this is the meeting that they would have. They won't be meeting next week. So if anyone's interested, they were looking for Rotarians to be able to show up, to be representatives, but also just to interact with them. They kind of want it sounds like from the Josh emails I got and what you've been saying, they want to have more interaction with us. So
But they want to know what projects, otherwise they're gonna end up making Valentine's Day cards to be delivered to Fraser Meadows.
yeah, and
I mean, with crayons,
and we've told Josh a lot of our projects, but I think that
Yeah.
having the representation there, they want more Rotarians there to keep them connected and keep that voice involved in their club.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, just to put this on jot it down in your notes, but we'll be looking for people that might be interested in participating with that.
So Hale Science Room 230.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Hale is which, the one
I don't
next to
know.
Mac?
I only know East Campus.
Yeah, it's on the west side of Mackey, between the
Oh,
Alumni
it's that old
Center.
building. Oh,
It's the old, it's like the third oldest building on campus.
Then I know where
It's
it
all
is.
Main, Woodbury, and then Hale.
And you can park for free after 6 o'clock on the thing,
On
right
that street.
there.
Well, there's parking across the street where the hotel's gonna be built, so.
I went to a conference of World Affairs meeting on Monday, and I was shocked. All the street parking off of University is now until 10 p.m. You can't park anywhere. I was
Yeah.
like going, why is everybody out of University? It's because they can't park on the street. There was
It's
nobody
getting
there.
crazy.
Nobody there,
Yeah.
so I parked illegally.
We get all these notifications in the parking.
I kept an eye out for it.
That's the way to do it. Parking.
Well, now for football games, even though it's COVID and right now, they're taking every single campus parking lot now during games, which before they did not do that. And our campus parking lot on Marine Street over here, it's like they're taking that one.
Why?
Exactly. Yeah, they're not
I
shuttling,
think it's
so
the
I don't.
revenue. I think they figured that people who park illegally pay fines. They're making money out of it.
Who knows? Anyhow, so another intro that I wanted to put out there real quick is that Ryla and Young Ryla is supposed to go live next year. So they are speaking.
Oh, it's-
Yeah, it's really exciting, but just wanted to let you all know that because I know that we care a lot about Ryla. If you're interested in volunteering for it, let me know. They were asking about that. I think a couple years without people doing it, it's really changed the dynamic. So they're just looking to kind of touch base with everyone. I know that Bill Hendricks has been our contact in the past. If someone feels very passionate about it, we want to talk to Bill and see if we want to have a different contact this year round, let us know. But yeah, so it's exciting. We haven't had Ryla in a few years in a live setting, so this will be great. We know these events, I've said them time and time again, everyone here's heard them over and over again, but we've got Woo Humanity, we have our Isabel Road cleanup on the 25th as well, Rocky's game on the 26th. I have a former president and assistant governor from San Francisco Rotary coming out that weekend too, so they'll be in town. And then convention, just as a reminder.
You announced that?
Yeah, I got that email this morning from you.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, but there's some free tech help information, so no one will have an excuse to not be able to use Zoom or something, all right?
Well, I'm going to learn how to do Instagram, so.
Awesome. So yeah, Generation Exchange, one of our recipients for Literacy Award is hosting free tech help. So we'll send an email reminder about that.
He was also a member of our club.
Right, for how long? Was it a couple
Like
years?
a year.
A year. Okay.
I don't think it was here.
All right, well,
Did he leave Rotary or did he just
And
change?
he's in
club?
Rotary, he's in Denver.
Yeah, so is he with the 5 Points Club?
No, he's with the one that meets at the
Southeast
university.
or whatever it is?
a university club?
Yeah,
So Mile High.
my.
Yeah. That's the active club there. I like to think we're the active club up here. All right, well, it's on the Happy Bucks. So this is the time of the meeting where you want to say something for the good of the club, or just let everyone know something's going on. Put a little cash in, it goes to the club and our efforts. I threw in a whole bunch of money, so I'll pass it on.
Well, here's 5 for the 5 of us that showed up to help Habitat for Humanity. And that's also tied to that, of course, I just got the proceed with caution notice from the US Forest Service that we could hold our Oktoberfest launch. Oh,
Great.
I get to play.
Thank you, Joe, for setting that up, and I told Jay about this, but in case you haven't heard, the Broomfield High School marching band has lost all their money because one of the mothers has found it.
Oh.
Isn't that just beyond? Makes me sick.
Is that a happy color?
It's a
That's
bad-
a sour note.
I like that. the
Sour
note.
note.
I'm happy I'm here and not in Louisiana.
Yeah.
I'm happy I'm here and can see the mountains today.
Yes. And today is my daughter's 36th birthday. I can't believe that I have a daughter that old, so that's my happy.
So I have a mad moment. I was in South Dakota and I went to visit the Pine Ridge. Why? I've never seen Badlands.
She was whipping us.
So I wanted to see Badlands and the White Hills. And I thought I'd go to the reservation. So I have a picture of us driving into the reservation. And there's a sign there It's a white sign, it says this is not a dump. And it's looking into craters. I mean, it's just so disgusting. And all the visitor centers were closed, the museums were closed because of COVID. And then they said there was a checkpoint, and I was afraid. I got a hold of that Alessandro Sachs, who gave us the report on the Pine Ridge clean non-contamination of water project, and he couldn't help me get in, but I was able to get in. But I was told that they weren't letting anybody in because of COVID. But we went to the Red Cloud Indian School, the Jesuit school, and they were very unwelcoming. They actually told my husband to get out.
It makes sense. I would
Yeah, it
if I
makes
were
sense,
there.
but I mean, I've been to Pueblos and I've been to other reservations, and I just wanted to see
COVID though.
what this was. I don't know, I don't know that it was COVID. I think it was.
I don't know. And I work the tribes. I think COVID is especially one of the big problems right now. This is historically, we've brought disease and killed people on reservations.
Oh,
And-
no, I totally understand. It was just a real eye opener. So, thank you, Dominic.
Did you see Crazy Horse?
Of course, it's not crazy. Yes.
All right.
I think you got Lou.
I'll get him in a minute.
One for habitat, that was fun, and I didn't get hot because I was caulking under the stairs, all 3 units.
Nice.
I enjoyed a beautiful wedding up in Estes Park for my niece at the De La Terra Chateau. That is a nice venue. They got married on a Tuesday because they got a discount because it's expensive. And then I'm just overjoyed, Mariah's home longer than the wedding, and because she's seeing a doctor and has to watch some medication before she goes back to LA, and she's motivating Norris and I to get rid of all the old stuff, and she's painting all these rooms, and
Awesome.
it's been awesome.
That's phenomenal.
It's like cleansing process.
She's
Well,
doing
number
one.
She's
one,
doing
my,
her environmental design space stuff with us.
Number one, my son is home from the hospital after 13 days. They discovered
Yay.
a lesion with the plumbing from the artery to the kidney, and once they got that going, he's peeing like a racehorse. So we're very happy to have him home. He has to go back every 2 or 3 days for ultrasound to make sure it doesn't grow back. And number two, my Iowa Hawkeyes are now rated number 5 in the United States polls for football, and we beat the crap out of Iowa State. So I wrote some of my Iowa State friends and said, "Dear Franklins, thank you for a most entertaining afternoon." And they didn't like that too well.
All right, Lil. Pass it on. My mom's down in Louisiana doing some work on tearing down old slave homes that were destroyed in Hurricane Ida. The families have been living in.
Old slave homes.
Yeah, the homes they built for the slaves, people still live in.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Let me see.
So, money to her. All right, well, we're on to our program for today, so if I can have everyone, oh, Bob, did you have,
Yeah, Bob's
Well,
gonna-
oh, we got another dollar for Bob. Like, here we go.
I got changed. I'm just glad to be whole again.
It was good to have you home. I'm glad that the bank would give you money.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I finally found the place last week. I had not read my email again, and so I went to the church.
Oh,
And then I went home and went virtual, so.
well, we did see you virtual last week, so.
You didn't need Beth at the church.
All right.
She has to show up for a while.
Look at this. It's actually
I will look on that for you.
$18.
If you go sit up front, we'll bring a chair up. You can bring this one up for you. Yeah, yeah.
Just roll around.
Would you want to sit up front for us?
Sure.
Awesome. Come on up. Yeah. And Lou, you're doing the introduction, so,
Yeah, am I in the right spot?
you know, if you can
Yes.
see yourself in the camera there, or they can see you.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you're all having a good day so far. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Howard Skolnik. Now, this is a very small world. That I was on the top of a mountain in Italy, in the middle of nowhere. And
there was a cooking class going on. There was one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Of course, the better ones were in the morning. We each had our own cooking spots. We got to cook lunch and we drank wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was a great time. So that afternoon, they had evening classes as well in the afternoon. And then we all got together 1 or 2 nights for dinner. And I heard a guy named Skolnik. I said, oh, he's got to be Jewish. And number 2, he lives in Lafayette. I said, we're neighbors. And we stuck up a relationship about 5 years ago. And I'm keeping him sober halfway. And so his background is unbelievable. That's why I asked him to come today. He has some very lifelong friends that are lifers. That's how well he knows these people in institutions. He's an executive with 45 years of experience in corrections. And I'm not going to go through everything he's got. It could be a movie all to itself. He'll bring you up to date on that. But a very, very good friend of mine, Howard Skolnik.
Thank you, Lou, and if you don't mind, I will continue to sit because I'm even older than he is. I started my career totally by accident. I was a student at the Ohio State University and taking a sociology course and one in criminology. And they offered us tours of some of the facilities in the area, including the Ohio Penitentiary. I connected with the professor in that class, and as a result, was asked if I'd like.
Oh, that's the intercom, sorry.
That's okay. And I was asked if I would be interested in doing an internship at the Ohio Penitentiary in the summer of my senior year, and we were guards back then. We were not officers because my training. My entire training was a 8-page manual, handwritten. The only thing I really remember from it was page 3, which was hostage situations. And it showed a guard with a shank, a knife up against his throat. And it was very short. It said, if taken hostage, you were only authorized to give one order, open fire. And I thought to myself that I may be making a mistake by taking this internship. That got really exacerbated when I reported for duty and was told that I was now the new intake officer for the entire Ohio prison system. And I asked the sergeant why he was doing that to me on my first day. And he said, because kid, you can read and write. Yeah, that's how much things have changed in the course of my career. At that time, the university had done a study a year or 2 before of the prison and discovered that the inmates were generally 10 to 15 points smarter in IQ and 3 to 4 grades better educated than the staff.
Wow.
Which was a good lesson for me in terms of who's really in charge of the prison. That summer was a fabulous learning experience. I figured, what the hell, I've got lifetime stories now. I don't have to do another thing. And then suddenly I remembered this thing called Vietnam and asked my draft board if I could get a deferment if I worked in prison. And the woman who was in charge laughed and said, you'd rather go to prison than go to Vietnam? Sure, no problem. Because back then women were not allowed to work anywhere inside of a facility. And even the professional staff could not walk without an escort from a guard. And I already told you how well trained the guards were. So I went to work in a place you may or may not have heard of called Joliet. Joliet back then actually still had cells that did not have running water. They had buckets that had to be cleaned out every morning. It was really an interesting experience. You walked into the room as a staff person and everybody stood and faced the wall until you told them they could turn around. They walked in lockstep, which meant a hand on the shoulder of the guy in front of them so that you could control the movements, control how many, where they were going, totally different environment than prisons became, sort of. I worked in Illinois for 17, 18 years. I spent time in Chicago as a parole officer on the south side of Chicago. I still remember going to follow up on a grant at a high school and being told by the principal to bring my motorcycle inside so no one steals it. I worked at it was very interesting. Illinois in the early 70s discovered a thing that had not been discovered anywhere else really, called community corrections. They had a parole office. Everybody had a parole office. In Illinois, parole was done by the state, probation was done by the county, so they were totally separate. In 1970, they opened the first state-operated halfway house in the country. And I wanted to go to graduate school, so I got a job there as the night security person, which kept me on the state payroll and allowed me to go to school during the day. That was probably where I learned how to be successful in corrections. For some reason, the parolees, the inmates, adopted me. They thought I was cute. You know, I was the night security. You see how big I am. I got hit one night by a guy that was drunk and hit the wall 4 feet away on a fly out of an executive chair. That's how big I was. And actually, that's an interesting story because another parolee saw what happened and came back in and pulled a knife on this guy and held him until the cops showed up. The guy that saved me was defended by a guy named Clarence Darrow, I believe. He was a black 16-year-old who killed a white police officer who was actually attacking him, and he disarmed the cop and beat him to death, and did not get the death penalty, which was, if you read his history, it was really remarkable. And as a result of him saving me, we got him, after 50 years, we finally got him off of parole as a free man. So he was able to end his life, his career, or whatever, as a free person. But they taught me how to walk. They taught me something that you should all know, which is if some guy comes up to you and looks like he's going to ask you for something, ask him for a cigarette first. Because if you ask him for a cigarette, he isn't probably going to ask you for money. If you think about that. So they taught me, we were a block off of Skid Row. They taught me how to walk, where to park, what to wear. To this day, I can walk through a bad neighborhood and have people smile and say hello, and I have no idea why, other than whatever they taught me somehow stuck. I did that, graduated, and then was asked, as I said, we were starting a community corrections program. I was asked to start up a pre-release program, which again, had never been done anywhere. So we set up a small group of guys. We worked very closely with the Joliet Chamber of Commerce, and we had people coming in to teach the inmates how to fill out applications. I mean, this was way before the internet. So how to fill out applications, how to talk to a prospective employer, what to wear. We also screened some of them to make sure that they were ready to get out and not hurt anybody. And it wasn't always successful. I still remember one case where we had warned the staff that this guy shouldn't be released, and they released him anyways. And he did kill somebody within 24 hours, a reporter for a local radio station, which obviously was big news. That was the beginning of my movements. When I was at the halfway house, I would come down every Saturday to interview prospective inmates. And I remember one day a lieutenant, because he knew I used to work in the prison, asked me if I'd come and help out in the kitchen, in the dining room. And the dining room at that time at Stateville fed 2,000 inmates at one time. It was clearly the most dangerous place inside of a prison. And I discovered when I got back there to help out why he needed help, because there were only 3 of us supervising 2,000 inmates. It was an interesting experience. It taught me what fear really is, and that it's not something you should necessarily be ashamed of, because we somehow managed to get all 2,000 inmates through the line, fed, and out of the dining room without a single incident. I have no idea how we did that. I just know that we did. I left the department. There was a governor named Walker in Illinois, one of many Illinois political people that went to prison. And I should tell you, the day they sentenced him, my wife heard me cheering from 40 miles away because he was the one that fired me. And then gave the contract. I was at that, I should back up a little. Peter Bensinger, who was a child of the family that owned Brunswick, became the director of corrections. They wanted to move things to a more business-like environment. And he told me that I was going to become the new planning manager for the department. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew more than everyone else, I guess. So I became the planning manager until Walker became the governor, and then he decided to take that whole division of 40 people and give it to his brother-in-law on a contract. So I was gainfully unemployed for a little while. I went to work for the Law Enforcement Assistance Administration, monitoring federal grants. And this would have been in the, I'm going to say the mid to late 70s, maybe early 80s. And I still remember that our boss was in New York, and I would come in the morning, and on my computer were my instructions for the day. So there was some kind of an internet even back then. I don't know how they did that. I don't claim to have any knowledge at all about that, but it was a really cool experience, and it exposed me to a whole wide range of criminal justice. And then I went to work for the. I got a grant to write the standards for non-metropolitan criminal justice. And I went down to Southern Illinois our office was in Carbondale. My home was in Craneville. Craneville, by the way, had a population of 285 people. My wife's apartment building was bigger than the town I moved her to. But that was, again, an incredible experience because I got to interact with all of the rural criminal justice system in the southern part of the state. And the southern part of the state was a very unique place. I still remember the sheriff of Union County asking me to go with him. He had to deliver a subpoena for non-support. And we drive through town to the river, turned around in old Shawnee Town. And he said, I want you, roll down your window. So I rolled down, that's back when you could roll down the windows. And I rolled down the window and he said, I want you to drive, see the guy that's sitting on that porch over there. I got to serve him. And when I throw the papers on his lap, I'm going to come in through the window. I want you to floor it. Get out of here. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I mean, he's the sheriff. Well, we left under a hail of gunfire. He obviously knew the town a lot better than I did. And that was Southern. I was out for a motorcycle ride with the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, who was this 6'4", blonde, big, burly, bearded guy. And we're going through another town and he says, people are gonna wave back, but don't slow down. And I said, why not? He said, because if you slow down, they're gonna put that jug in their right hand down and pick up their shotgun with their left hand. So just wave back. And that was Southern Illinois back in the late 70s, early 70s. From there, I went to work for the Illinois Dangerous Drugs Commission. Our motto is better living through chemistry. We had really good Christmas parties. And my responsibility was for designing prevention programming for the state. And while I was only there for 2 years. While I was there, a very dear friend came into my office, closed my door, and said, I just got appointed as the incoming assistant director for the Illinois Department of Corrections, and we have to redesign it. Would you help me? And we want you to come back. And I was very bitter. I said, sure, I'll come back. I'll come back for an 8-hour day and a 50% salary increase. Oh, and I want to run prison industries because I had absolutely no skills or ability in that area. But I figured, it's an easy out for them that they could say, no, we can't do that. And they gave me the job.
Be careful what you ask for.
Actually, that was the best thing I have ever done in my life. That part of my career was unbelievable. We had a fire set in our furniture factory that was so hot it melted the glass bricks and some of the concrete. And I met with the inmates as soon as they cleared the crime scene. And within 7 days, we had the place back in operation. It was a matter of, okay, guys, you want your job, I want my job. We got to get this place reopened or we're done. And we discovered all kinds of skills among those inmates. They rewired the place. They built an 18-foot high temporary wall so that they could manufacture in the back while they were stored in the front, and then manufacture in the front while they were stored in the back. It was just, I think we might have broken a couple of OSHA rules. But then, one of the joys of my job, I remember a friend of mine was running was up for being a federal judge, and I made the FBI meet me in the back of the prison to go over his background because he had some strange stuff in his background that I knew about, and it was very interesting because he took their guns away from them. No guns inside the prison. Made him walk across the yard because I made sure I was all the way in the back. And all they wanted to do was get out of there. So it was a very short interview. They didn't ask me the questions that I didn't want to have to answer. And that's what prison is really like. It's not what you see on TV, but it is. It's strange. In Nevada, we had a law that was ultimately changed, but allowed at the age of 14, you could be tried as an adult. And I remember this 14-year-old kid who had committed a murder. He was about, I don't know, 5'4", 5'5", 80, 90 pounds, blonde, blue-eyed. And, when we first saw him, we thought, oh my God, how are we going to protect him? Well, you looked at his eyes, and there wasn't nothing, absolutely nothing. Every inmate in that place was afraid of him. It was just really weird, but it was also, again, another lesson that it's not about size. We had a former Ram linesman doing time. We used to take him to the local schools to talk to the kids about scared straight kind of stuff. And some, they'd always ask me, you must be fine. You must not have any problems at all in prison. And his response was, you may be big, but you're never that big. You're never big enough, not inside. Hell, one of the inmates introduced me as the biggest guy in prison because I was the director. I said, sure I am. I used to run. I used to be a runner, and I used to run at lunch when I was the warden at the facility. The inmates asked me why I would run every day because it was all uphill. Well, half uphill, half down. And I said, I will never, ever be the last guy off the yard when something is going down. And actually, we set up a 5K for the inmates to run inside the institution. And I ran with them. I've still got the hands. Prisons have changed dramatically. Today, to become an officer, you have to go through a minimum of 8 weeks of classroom training. You have a year of probation under supervision, and you can be removed for no cause at all during that year to provide for some kind of stability. They told me that during my final year as director, I fired 155 people for excessive force, for drugs, for stupidity, for a variety of reasons. I didn't count them, but apparently the personnel officer did. But managing the facility took an amazing amount of balance, because on the one hand, you're outnumbered literally hundreds to one. On the other hand, you have the weapons, you're in charge, you make the rules, you have the control. I don't like you, I don't like what you did. You know where you're going to be tomorrow? You're going to be in Ely, Nevada. Ely, Nevada is
They've got a
a
beautiful
miserable place. You've never been there. It's cold. We had a couple of escapes from the camp up there. We didn't even bother to look for them because they escaped during the winter, and we found their bodies in the spring. It's that, you know, when you leave Vegas and it's 60 and you wake up the next morning in Ely and it's 26 below, you know that you've had a temperature change of 250 miles. Welcome to Nevada. I liked my job as prison industries guy. That's how I got to Nevada. Nevada got a grant, and Illinois became one of the states that they wanted to tour the prison industry program in. And as a result of that, they got another grant, and they asked me to come and write some legislation for their program. Their program was bankrupt. It was really, really in bad shape. And I wrote the legislation, and then they called me to testify on it. And then they took me to lunch and offered me a job as the assistant director, which is the position that I wrote into the legislation. And I said no, because I really liked my job in Illinois until I got back. And my boss suddenly became a jerk. I don't know what happened. But, so when they offered me the job again, I said yes, and I moved to Illinois, or from Illinois to Nevada, where they actually had one of the very first what the private sector partnership programs. We manufactured water beds in one of our facilities back in the 80s. The inmates were paid minimum wage. Or prevailing wage. We got away with minimum wage in Nevada. Minimum wage in Nevada was $1 above minimum wage federally, so it was not bad. On my way out to start the job, I'm sitting on the aisle. There's a guy in the window, the middle seat's empty, and he's got pictures in the middle seat. And those pictures are of the limousines. And so I start talking to him, and turns out he's a limousine manufacturer in Chicago. He's going to Las Vegas to fix a car that needs to be fixed. And then he's flying to New Jersey to see about moving his plant. So I asked him if he would consider moving his plant to the prison in Nevada. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And unfortunately, I told you, I had the ILC. He had to go to the bathroom and I wouldn't let him out until he committed to go. At least look. Well, 8 months later, we were licensed by Lincoln as a manufacturer of stretch limousines. We manufactured a couple of Cadillacs and mostly Lincolns. I still remember calling the head of state purchasing and asking her if I could buy these 3 Lincoln Town cars in California. And she says, well, they're not on state contract. I said, no, I would hope not. These are special for manufacturing limousines, and the dealer said he'd floor plan them, which means you pay interest until you sell them and then you pay for the cars. She said, 3 of them? I said, yeah. She said, when are you coming to Carson City? Because I was based in Las Vegas. I said, in about 2 weeks. She said, okay, get the cars. When you get up here, come on and meet with me so we can figure out how to pay for them. That was Nevada back in the 80s. You did things on a handshake. There was no bureaucracy. It was beyond beautiful. I don't know how to describe it. We had a stained glass factory that did the stained glass for the Luxor Hotel, the Excalibur Hotel. We manufactured in our mattress factory most of the mattresses for the Treasure Island Hotel and Casino. Let's see, what else did we do? That we built most of the steel work for construction for Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side. We built the ambulance that was used at the Las Vegas Speedway. But my favorite, how many of you have ever heard of Carroll Shelby and the Shelby Cobra? We built the Cobras at the prison.
Oh, wow.
Richie Klein was the owner of the auto collection at the Imperial Palace. And when he saw a news story about our limousine operation, he asked if we could restore cars out of the prison. So we actually restored the Pope Mobile, we restored Elvis Presley's first car.
Wow.
We restored one of Hitler's cars. We restored a Duesenberg that was one of 5 cars that was exhibited at the Concord Elegance in an auction in Pebble Beach. And Richie calls me. He's meeting with a guy by the name of he built Cobras. I can't think of his name. And Carroll Shelby, and Shelby said apparently they wanted Shelby to move his operation from Texas to Nevada. Shelby said to Klein, if I can have part of my operation out of the prison, I'll move. So I told Richie I'd throw him out if I had to. We found space for him, and he had VIN numbers from back when he was manufacturing. So we built 3 original Carroll Shelby Cobras out at the prison. We repainted his Cobra because the paint job that he paid $12,000 for wasn't as good as the paint job that the inmates did. And then he got tired of people knocking him off, so we built fiberglass Cobras out there. So, I used to get phone calls from people asking if we had a painter coming out. We had 100% post-release employment.
Talk about your famous inmates that people would recognize.
Oh, you mean like OJ?
Like OJ would be.
Yeah, I got a call one day from the public information officer for Station Casinos, and she said, Howard, you're probably gonna get a phone call or 2 in the next week, because we just had OJ Simpson arrested in our hotel for a whole number of things. So I held this single press conference only for local media and invited we actually sent his picture out with the press release so nobody could sell it. And I told him I'd be here as long as you want, but I'm never going to mention his name in public again. And 45 minutes later, we were finished, and I never mentioned his name in public again. He was an excellent dominoes player. He was a good coach of the softball team, and he belonged in prison. He fit in perfectly. He was a thug. We've had a couple others, but none quite as famous as him. He presented some challenges in the beginning in terms of what do we do with them. I was walking across the yard of the old banks, and a group of black inmates stopped me and asked me what I was going to do with OJ. And I looked at the speaker and I said, I think I'm going to put him in your cell and make you responsible for his safety. And of course, everyone else but him burst out laughing. But that was literally what we did. We put them in a facility that was predominantly sex offenders. We put him with a gang leader to protect him for the first 6 months till we felt comfortable that he could walk the yard by himself. And then he just did his own time. Did 9 years before he was paroled. He probably shouldn't have been paroled that fast, but he was. He was O.J. Simpson. Yeah. Wow.
Have you or anybody else kept track of recidivism of the inmates that you had working in your facility?
We had one of the best recidivism rates in the country at about 26%. The average runs in the low 50s. So we had a really, now I have to be honest, there's a couple of reasons for that. One was some of the programming we did. And one was the fact that we sent an awful lot of our inmates to other states because they weren't our people. They got busted while they were doing bad things. And, you know, people come to Las Vegas and think you can do whatever you want. And you can't. There still are laws even in Nevada. So we had a lot of people that when they got out, went back to their families, which were in California or New York or wherever. But our success rate was statistically really, really good.
I didn't know recidivism was that bad.
Oh, yeah. You don't go to prison ordinarily the first time you do something wrong. And you don't usually get to go someplace other than where you came from. If you put those two things together, you've got a bad environmental situation that you're releasing people to that doesn't bode well for their success.
Hey, Howard, you mentioned earlier about a youth that, because in Nevada, they did have the ability to put children in prison at the age of 14, you said.
Yeah.
So what are your general thoughts on the differentiation between incarcerating youth as adults or using youth incarceration systems separate from adult systems?
Well, my personal feelings are that kids don't go to adult prison. That being said, there are not immoral, but there are amoral people out there that are really, really dangerous and bad. Not a lot, very, very few, but somehow you got to figure out how to deal with them in a situation that doesn't put them back on the streets right away. But I'm unusual for my career. I happen to believe that drugs should not be illegal, especially after working at the Dangerous Drugs Commission and seeing who ends up getting punished generally for drug crimes. And it's not equal, I guess is a good way to put it. And it's very expensive. Nevada is a very cheap state. We only cost you, the taxpayer, $22,500 a year per inmate. A state like California, I think runs in the 60s, $60,000 a year. So when you take somebody that has done a non-victim crime, a victimless crime, and you put them in prison, you pay for it. And you pay for it in two ways, because you're also increasing the likelihood that they'll be back in prison. And before you ask, a quick story about a poor kid, college kid coming from California with marijuana in his car, and he was speeding. He didn't want to get pulled over because he had marijuana in his car. Well, he finally got stopped, but he got stopped 25 yards into Nevada. And instead of paying a fine, he got 20 years. And that's part of why I think that there needs to be some kind of nationalization. No, I don't know what you know about marijuana. My wife is a cancer survivor, and she uses that drug. She uses that drug to sleep, and she uses that drug to eat. And it works. And it really does. And it doesn't make her crazy. Well, it doesn't make her crazy.
Living with you.
Yeah, well, today we make 45 years, so we're doing better than a lot of people.
Well, Howard, I do want to allow for one last question, but I wanted to just kind of indicate to everyone that we're running up on the end of our time.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm curious, state corrections and federal corrections, how big of a difference in sort of the management of?
Well, in a state like Nevada, for example, I got everywhere all the time. In a state, even like California, you can't. I mean, I've talked to colleagues that have never seen some of their facilities. And then the feds are all over the country. The laws are different. Prisons prison is prison. I was asked to speak to a group, and they talked about the culture what he talked about. He was a war director here in Colorado, and he talked about the fact that the physical plants are what cause prisoners to be the way they are. Well, I take strong exception to that. I had an opportunity to tour the prisons in mainland China back in the 80s, and I asked the warden if he ever had an escape, and he said he thought he might have had one 700, 800 years ago, but he wasn't sure. That's how old their prisons are over there. They're very, very physically obsolete. The culture is unbelievable because the Chinese culture is unbelievable. They have embarrassed their families. They're not going to do anything wrong ever again as long as they live if they can possibly avoid it, because they embarrass their families. And you don't do that in China. They have prison industries over there. And at night, people from the community come into the prison to work in the factories so that they don't waste the space, so that their operation. They had a program when I was there, I don't know if it's still there, but they had a program where the victim, the arresting officer, the family member of the inmate, and the warden would meet every 6 months to review or periodically, I should say, to review the performance of the inmate, and that group is capable of cutting the sentence in half, and did usually. So, you hear, now I've got to tell you, I did not go to political prisons, I went to criminal prisons. And the criminal prisons over there, outside of the fact that we could probably take our health and safety people and put them in a prison kitchen over there and never see them again while they're writing things up. And we ate lunch after, fortunately, before we visited the kitchen. But the prisons over there for the criminals were really, really comfortable. The interaction between staff and inmates was nice. I don't know how else to put it. It was not what I expected. It was not what I thought we would see, but it was very, very positive. So I don't think it's the physical plant. I think it's the culture. And our culture in this country, I mean, we have more guns. Who here has a gun at home besides me? We have more guns than we have people in this country. We have street gangs, we have poverty, we have homelessness, we have all kinds of issues that we don't really address that contribute to the violence that we see every day. I don't have an answer for that particularly, but I will say that when I was in charge of the prison system and when I was in charge of prison industries, we were very comfortable. I remember walking through the prison yard and having a warning shot fired. And I looked around and everybody was doing what they were doing. The gardeners were gardening, the workers were working. Nobody stopped because they were not doing anything wrong. So they knew that that shot was not meant for them. That was the culture that we cultivated in the system, was that you could, as long as you did what you were supposed to do, I didn't care if you ran the Bloods or the Crips, if you did what you were supposed to do, behave, you could go to camp, you could go to minimum security, you could work your way to that, you could get rewarded for your behavior. That's not really a common thread, although it's becoming more common. They're starting to do away with things like solitary and other negative stuff. But anyways, I guess I ran out of time.
Really a pleasure. We wanted to give you a token of our appreciation for your
Thank
time. Coming from a family that has worked in the penal system for generations, very much interested in your talk today. So thank you for sharing with us. And hope that you come back. I feel like you would definitely fit in here to help us with our community efforts. I know Lou's lukewarm about you, but I think
He's the only one that's seen most of my sides.
Yeah.
I am not a warm and wonderful human being.
But you gotta admit, meeting Italy, running into a guy like this on top of a mountain is
In
crazy.
cooking school. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Meant to
but
be.
it meant to be.
yeah.
Meant to be.
Well, phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for your time and coming out. We know that you've got a busy life right now, and so we appreciate you being here. Very
I'm
much
glad
so.
it worked out.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that said, it's Wednesday's Rotary, so thank you all, and expect to see more emails from us today.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Do you live in Boulder?
I live in Lafayette.
And you have, we're gonna build.
I'm a member of another service club, Austin.
They don't
Would you be available for